Hello, lovely people. We are back. It's been a minute, right? Have not recorded episodes in a while, but putting out quite a few for you in the coming weeks. This first one, very, very special, part of a series on protecting your energy, reconnecting to inner wisdom, understanding your boundaries, increasing your intuition, and going beyond self-help tropes and cliches to make real connection and slow and steady change, and always returning to self, returning to whatever that meaning is for you. um, just returning, right? This episode with Tracee Stanley is a good one. We have a practice embedded in there. Tracee's going to talk to us about ritual, some ancient rituals, the importance of mantra, why it's so important to protect your energy these days, how to make some habits, some rituals that last, why small is important, and how to just rein in the senses and come back to you. So if you've been feeling lost, drained, disconnected, or maybe you're not feeling those things, maybe you're feeling great and you want to keep it going or feel even better, this one is for you. Tracee Stanley is the author of an upcoming book, Living Ritual, and one of the reasons I wanted to get this right out to you is if you pre-order that book, you're going to get invited to a ritual experience with Tracee. I'll tell you that I am going to be participating in that. So pre-order her book, and you get invited to her special ritual. The book is called Living Ritual, Infuse Each Day with Purpose and Spirit. And she's also the author of best-selling books Radiant Rest and The Luminous Self. Tracee is the founder of Empowered Life Circle, a sacred community and portal of practices, rituals, and tantric teachings inspired by more than 30 years of studentship at Sri Vidya Tantra and the teachings of the Himalayan Masters. And we're going to talk about lineage and gurus and transmission, and you just want to sign up for Tracee's newsletter, if nothing else, because she gives so many great gifts. Tracee is devoted to sharing the wisdom of yoga nidra, rest, meditation, self-inquiry, nature as a teacher, and ancestor reverence. She holds certifications from Pacifica Graduate Institute in advanced ecotherapy, new thinking, best practices, and emerging modalities, and a certificate in advanced eco psychology. Tracee is devoted to illuminating the magic and power found in liminal space and weaving devotion and practice into daily life. Oh, we do talk about that as well, because we know that you are busy people doing the things you need to run your households. So we're not denying that. We want you to weave it in. Actually, that's more important than going someplace, doing a thing, and then going back to feeling all crazed. So find more about Tracee at traceestanley.com. Of course, we're going to tag that and hyperlink all that in the show notes. Find someplace you can really listen and tune in for this one, folks. This episode is brought to you by My Therapy Flow. Are you a practice owner who wants more clients for you or your team? Do you wish you knew what marketing was actually working and where your clients were coming from? Therapy Flow transforms therapy practices with HIPAA-compliant marketing services and a custom CRM that tracks down and follows up with leads automatically. They've been working with therapy practices since 2018 and have helped thousands scale. Therapy Flow can help grow your practice too. If you want to delegate marketing and scale your practice, book a call. Mention Beyond Trauma for 50% off your first 3 months with the Therapy Flow CRM. Visit mytherapyflow.com to book a call or join the Flow, a weekly resource with more than 15,000 practice owners getting free practice growth advice. And we're live. Thank you, Tracee Stanley, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lara. It's really lovely to be with you again.
I'm so excited to talk to you because I use your meditations, visualizations,
Mm.
practices probably more than any other in my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's personal to me. And there's one that you sent recently in a newsletter where you breathe in and you see the light coming through the two nostrils and into the third eye and out that I do regularly now when I can't sleep, and it just calms me down.
Pranadarna, one of my
Hmm.
favorites.
Yeah, so this is what I wanted to kind of ask you about because like we were just saying really briefly before we went live, like to me you were just bringing in and please correct me, it just seems like you're bringing a lot of very authentic influences into your work, and that you're not our typical, part of this series that I'm doing is about protecting energy, which I'm sure we'll get into,
Mm.
and practices and getting deeper, which I always am, than this typical like self-help,
Mm.
these
Yes.
platitudes. and
Hmm.
and you come from some really deep training, and a lot of really ancient lineages, and I think that's what I understand when I learn from you. And I was wondering if you could just give us a little overview of like what you're doing with yoga nidra. And yeah.
Thank you for that question, and also that observation. What I would say first is that the practice and the teaching, from my perspective, has changed a lot in the last several decades around the teaching of yogic practices. And I think I was very fortunate that I did begin my yoga journey with more subtle energetic practices, and then moved to power yoga, and then loved power yoga and loved that idea of, using the body as a tool. And at the same time, when I was really getting into power yoga, I picked up a copy of the Yoga Sutras because I was going on retreat, and I thought, oh, it'd be nice to read a book about yoga. I had never heard of the Yoga Sutras before. And when I started reading it, I landed on Sutra 136. And Sutra 136 talks about this place inside of us that is in the heart, that is effulgent and more brilliant than 10,000 suns.
Hmm.
And it is this place that is beyond all sorrow, beyond all conditioning, beyond all pain. And that we all have this place inside of us. And I remember thinking, oh, wait a second, I think I might be practicing the wrong kind of yoga. I, I need to know more about this place.
Okay.
And in continuing to read that translation of the Yoga Sutras, which was a translation from Mukunda Styles, I believe, um, it had a vibration. It had a transmission. I didn't have those words at that time, but I felt that everything that I was reading, whether I actually intellectually understood it or not at the time, it
Yeah.
was a transmission.
Yeah.
And I started to ask the elders in the community, this is the experience that I had. I read the Yoga Sutras. Who should I go to study with? And I kept getting pointed to the practices of the Himalayan Masters and the teachers who were studying and sharing those teachings. And so I think from pretty much, 4 years into my yoga practice, and I wouldn't really call it yoga study at that point because I wasn't studying yoga other than the physical asana. But once I got on that track, I was introduced to this idea of sadhana, this idea that, you do a practice and you do it with devotion at same time, same place.
Hmm.
And you do it in a way where you can compare. And I think that's the beauty of sadhana. It's the beauty of ritual as well, is that you have a constant that is you, right? That is
Hmm.
the real you that you might not be in touch with, but that you can start to compare, like, who was I when I first started this sadhana 40 days ago or 90 days ago? And who am I now? Am I
Mm-hmm.
better now than I was before I started this sadhana?
Yeah.
What has shifted within me? And so it became very clear pretty quickly that sadhana works, consistent practice works, reading as much of, the spiritual books that were available at that time work. Um, and I think I just fell into this track of a different kind of yoga that wasn't really, yes, there were, challenging postures and things like that. And also becoming acquainted with Vinny Yoga and acquainted with Sally Kempton's teachings. It's like these were people who were really steeped in their practice,
Mm-hmm.
and they were teaching from places that were unbroken lineages. And
Yeah.
I think that that's the thing that matters. Even if you only connect to one tributary in that lineage and you devote yourself to that tributary, it has the power to change you, and it has the power to help anyone else that you might share those practices
Oh, there's a lot in there. Um,
with.
there's a few things I want to highlight and maybe pull apart a little more.
Hmm.
One thing that you spoke to, which I think is very important, is the feeling vibration, the heart vibration that you got when reading a text resonated, as opposed to sometimes what we can do is just read a lot of books and learn a lot of methods or ideas, but you're you're taking it into the action, letting it change you.
Yeah. And, I'm lucky because at the time when I was living in Los Angeles, there was a bookstore called the Bodhi Tree. And it was a spiritual bookstore and had been around for many, many decades. And I remember also that was where I bought that book. Whenever I would go into that space, I would feel the same feeling of transmission. I would there was something there, not just in the books and in the pages themselves, but in the people who worked there and the people who were going there. And they had these chairs that, they would have all around the bookstore where you could sit and you could read.
Mm,
And so I think I was just attuned to this frequency of truth that I didn't know. I couldn't have named it, but I know that frequency now. I know when I'm reading something, feeling something, experiencing something that is true, whether it's within me or seemingly outside of me.
hmm and and there's something about the repetition of doing a practice or reading one sutra again and again, or practicing with a smaller bit, um, with this frequency of every day for 40 days, um, that is important, it seems like.
Yes, I found that, I think the first time I was asked to do something for 40 days, I was like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. What do you mean I have to do this for 40 days every day? That's never going to happen. And when I finally got to the 40 days, it was like, oh, I can do anything.
Mm, hmm
So then I was almost kind of self-guiding in some instances myself to say, well, why am I doing this just for 40 days? Why don't I just do this for 90 days? Why don't I do this for the whole year?
yeah.
um, and I think that unfortunately this idea of sadhana, um, and the slow wisdom that kind of comes from sadhana over a long period of time is not something that our culture right now is interested in, um, because everything that's trending is about being quick. It's
hmm
about getting it fast. It's about outsourcing your own knowing.
mm.
It's not about internalizing and understanding a wisdom of something. And so, um, I really bow to all those teachers who are still teaching in those slower ways that really allow you, um, to know who you are.
When you offer up a practice, that's 40 days or 60 days or 90 days, I mean, we know how difficult it is for folks to do something for 2 days in a row.
Hmm.
um, and then the kind of messages they might tell themselves after, if they miss a day, about I can't do anything, I always mess up, or it's broken now. Do you see that come up with your students, and how do you address that?
Yeah, I do see it come up and I name it before we even begin. Um, there are a couple of teachers that I've had in the past who would say, you know, if you miss a day of meditation, let's say you're doing a meditation sadhana, it's enough for you to touch that cushion and to remember the meditation, to remember the sadhana,
Mm,
and then to go back to it the next day.
yeah, just make contact.
Yeah, it's the remembrance, right, of the practice. And in some instances, this idea of even pulling the thread from the last practice. So just closing your eyes and kind of remembering, when is that last deepest blissful grounded practice that I can remember.
Mm,
Let me pull the thread forward and feel as though I'm in that space right now of that full remembrance from top of head to tip of toes.
yeah,
And let me open my eyes and then continue my practice from there. Because all of the practices, I believe this, is that all of the practices that we have done in the past are not lost. They're held in abeyance for us. It's like
yeah.
we have this secret bank account that we might have forgotten about, and we have access to that.
I totally agree. I always ask folks at the end of the asana class I teach to feel the feelings, and kind of, because you can come back to them. You can call into that at any time. So just to take a moment to remember the feeling,
Hmm.
and even sometimes to place it, in a memory place in the body.
I love that. I love that because the bhavana is just as strong as the practice a lot of times. Yeah.
Mm. Um, and I know you talk a lot about the most of the folks that are learning from you and taking on these practices are in a householder state. And maybe you can explain to people that don't know what that's about, but like, what are like the different phases of life, and what is specific to being a householder and, taking on some of these ancient practices?
That's a great question. So in Hindu philosophy, there's something known as the ashramas, which are known as the four stages of life. And the first stage is like the student stage where you're learning and you're growing and you're figuring things out for yourself. And the second stage is the householder stage. It's the stage that most people that I know, including myself, are in, where we are responsible for our families, we're responsible for a home, we have a job, we're not we may have a spiritual practice, but that is not, our 24/7 spiritual practice is not the thing. We don't have anyone coming and bringing us chai, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the last stages. And so the next stage after that is forest dweller. It's kind of like being able to move away from the city and away from the hustle and bustle, dedicate a little bit more time to your spiritual practices, but you're still in the world, right? And then a sannyasin is someone who has renounced all of worldly concerns. You are in the cave or you are at the ashram and you are dedicating your entire life to spiritual practice. Now, what I notice a lot is that there is a real longing to be able to be in that sannyasin space, to dedicate your entire life. But most of us are not there. And maybe we'll never get there. Maybe we will. Who knows?
Yeah.
But in the householder state, we have so many responsibilities, especially today. I think about the rhythm of life when I was growing up was much different than the rhythm of life now. It's like we could count on both parents being home from work at 5 o'clock and dinner being on the table at 6, and no phone calls, work related, were coming in, no distractions were coming in, right? You could really focus. There's a lot of distraction and there's a lot of lack of focus in the householder. So, what I like to do is just acknowledge that we're all in the householder flow. And how can we bring practices in, and how can we maybe titrate practices a little bit more and how can we have shorter practice times in order to be able to weave these practices through our daily life, which is really, I believe, what yoga is meant to do. Yoga, we know, is not just about rolling out your mat or sitting on your cushion and then moving along with your day without ever thinking about your yoga practices and principles and things that you've learned. So, really, the householder flow is a way to weave yoga and weave ritual throughout your daily life without it being demarcated by, oh, I was in my practice 15 minutes ago and now I'm not in my practice anymore.
Hmm. Does that mean that everything becomes the practice, like washing dishes, and
Yeah,
somehow that's part of my practice?
everything becomes the practice. The dishes, it's funny that you mentioned the dishes washing because that's like my worst chore that I do not like. And that was one of the first things that I had to work with, um, to bring myself into. This is a ritual also, right?
Hmm.
This is a part of the practice also. The yamas and the niyamas are practices also that I can bring into my daily life. And so I think that if we start to reframe life as the practice, then things become a little bit different. We actually, as much as maybe to some people it might seem like, oh no, life is the practice, then I have to be perfect all the time. It's like, no, life is the practice. And we get to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, in ways that we might not look at otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, what really hurts is to see like the cliche, and it's a cliche because it's something that we see is like the folks running to yoga, like hitting people along the way to get to their mat, you know, very calm, very focused for an hour and a half. And then, the second it's over, just trampling over everyone. And I did this thing, right?
Yeah.
um, and what you're talking about is something much deeper and fuller than that.
Yeah, it's fuller, it's more integrated, and I think it makes for a happier life in a lot of ways. And um, we get to really look at ourselves all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Scary but also beautiful.
Yeah.
And so for those people who want to start to bring some practices in, um, and want it maybe something small, something that they feel is doable, where do you like suggest people start?
Mm. Well, I really suggest that people start with noticing the breath and noticing the mantra that is already riding on the breath. So the mantra that we were all born with, so hum, and really just being able to take a few moments, right? Doesn't have to be 15 minutes, to just close your eyes, feel inward, notice your internal landscape, notice what's happening, acknowledge what's arising
Hmm.
without trying to push anything away. And then just become aware that the body is breathing. And when you notice the body breathing, just begin to listen to the sound of the breath and notice if you can hear the sound so as the body inhales and hum as the body exhales. And maybe then even bringing a little bit more attention to the opening of the nostrils, and let your all of your attention kind of rest at that opening and just feel the air as it moves in through the nostrils and as it moves out. And when you start to feel that, just notice the sensation that you might feel of the breath as it touches the inside of the nostrils. And maybe you start to notice that, oh, the breath is a little cooler on the inhale and warmer on the exhale. And you just do that for 2 or 3 minutes and notice how it is that you feel. And you can start to weave that through your day if you are paying attention to the transitions of when you have spaciousness. And sometimes we need to reframe the spaciousness and the time because we are being trained really to fill the time with our phones and
Mhm.
with our emails and with distractions. And so it will require you to recall your attention back from some of the distractions that you have. and find more spaciousness in your day. And when people start doing that, um, they start to realize, look, oh, I actually have way more time than I
Yeah.
thought I did.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
And it's amazing to be able to reclaim that.
Wow, it really is. It really is. And when you feel how good it feels, you don't want to pick up your phone. You actually want to give yourself that medicine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I also wonder about the, like the other side of that, right? So the positive side of feeling how good something feels and then wanting to do it, right? That helps us to get going and stay going.
Hmm.
There's also this shadow side where we can start to do these practices for result. Especially was thinking of that when you're talking about, I do this 40-day sadhana because I want something. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, our dear teacher, Sally Kempton, she wrote a book called Meditation for the Love of It. And that really says it all. Learn how to practice for the love of it,
Hmm.
not for the boons, not for the results. Because if you are looking for the result, you're always going to be looking over here. You're always going to be looking in one direction. Where's the result? Where's the thing? And you're going to miss all the other things that are coming through for you, all the other information that you might be getting about how you're moving through life and how you might need to make a shift or a change to create more ease for yourself, to create
Hmm.
less pain, right? Because whenever we do any kind of sadhana, at least in my own experience, patterns of thinking are actually revealed, patterns of how we act, the habits that we have that are not life affirming are, a light is starting to get shown on them. And so at some point we get to make the decision, do we want to shift this, or are we okay with it continuing the way it is? Is it causing us pain? And is it going to be more painful for us to continue or more painful for us to put a stop to it?
Hmm.
And so these are all the kinds of things that come up during sadhana. It's not like we just decide we're doing a 40-day sadhana and then all of a sudden it's all hunky dory. We're going to go through emotional and mental ups and downs as we begin to kind of see what's really underneath the surface.
Yeah. The process is the thing.
Yeah.
And by doing this repetitive thing, I feel like we were kind of on the edge of saying this before. It's like, then we're the only thing that's changing.
Yes.
So
That's
you get
right.
to really see yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are the control factor in the experiment.
Hmm. And for that reason, do you recommend if someone takes on a sadhana or any kind of ritual or practice that they do it at the same time of day?
I think if you can, you know, um, it's a big ask, I do think, in this day and time. But I think if you just start and make the commitment that you're going to do something every day, then after about a week or two, you might start to notice or maybe be inspired to say, oh, you know what? I could actually get up 15 minutes earlier than I normally do.
Hmm.
And I can place this practice in that 15 minutes or in that 5 minutes. And things start to shift when you start to practice and you start to feel the results of your practice and the the noticing that happens with your practice. I do think that we become more inspired, and all of a sudden we start to see more opportunities to practice. We become more curious.
Hmm. Yeah. Start where you can enter and notice where you're called.
Exactly. Yeah.
You've mentioned Sally Kempton a few times in this conversation. I wanted to ask you about her.
Mm.
I know she was a great influence and teacher for you, and that she left this worldly realm not too long ago.
3 years
Um,
ago, almost to the day.
oh wow, feels like so like
Yeah.
yesterday or something. The time.
Mhm.
Can you say a little bit about her and how she influenced your work?
Yeah, I mean, mostly through her books, Shakti Awakening,
It's a favorite.
Meditation for the Love of It. And whenever I was lucky enough to be able to sit with her, it was always like, this is a pure stream of transition and knowledge and wisdom from somebody who, you know, became a sannyasin, walked away from worldly life, and then came back. And I feel like she came back with so many treasures and so many practices for us in ways that I'll never be able to express my gratitude for.
Mm,
Because most of my teachers in the lineage that I study in have been male. And so it was really amazing for me to be able to sit with a female teacher
yeah.
in such a different way who had such reverence for the goddess. You know, there were some years that had gone by where I never even heard the word goddess in some of the practices. So to have her be able to tell these stories, she was such a beautiful storyteller, and to offer these practices in a way that felt really nourishing was something that I think offered me a um, a kind of like holding of, oh, there's a lot of ways to hold these practices and to share these practices. And I think the way in which I share these practices is very influenced by her love and her care and her devotion.
Mm. There's been a lot of uh, backlash against like gurus or you know, looking outside oneself.
Mm.
I always laugh because I think even in my short 46 years, I've seen so many pendulums just where we tend to be so extreme. Everything is good or bad. It seems like, you know, in the last decade or so, there's been a lot of listen to yourself and don't follow the guru. And you talk a lot about lineage, parampara, transmission. Um, Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, there's
You're like,
there's
that's a whole nother.
that's a whole nother podcast,
That's true. That's
but
true.
we want to just acknowledge that there has been a lot of abuse of power from teachers, gurus, and we're continuing to see that happen. And the stories are coming out, and unfortunately, they seem to all have a lot of common denominators of these, you know, promises of you're special and I know better than you do, and you know, getting a special mantra or a special practice, or and it has to end. And it's not just male gurus, this happens with female gurus as
Yeah.
well. um, but I would say that one of the things that we, you know, I was lucky that when I first started practicing yoga, I don't remember who it was. I think it was an old friend that I had named Ira, who gave me the book called The Guru Papers. And this was basically, if I remember correctly, it was like a dissertation on guru abuse and what to look for. And I always kept that kind of in the back of my mind. And
Wow.
I think that we need somebody needs to write another guru
Yeah.
papers.
Another book,
It
Tracee.
won't be me, but somebody needs to write another, or we need to bring that book back into the zeitgeist, because one of the things that I think can happen is when you outsource your knowing to an outside source like a guru or AI, you become very easily manipulated, right? So the word guru means one who leads you from darkness to light. The light that the guru is leading you towards is your own true self. So anytime a teacher is leading you away from your true self towards them as the source of power, the source of wisdom, the source of knowledge, that to me is a danger signal. I believe that the job of the teacher is to continually keep pointing you back to your own inner knowing, your own discernment, your own ability to be able to touch into what is true and to recognize what's true through
Mm.
practice.
Yeah, it seems it's very vulnerable, right? Because there's something about this surrender and there's a feeling of kind of giving up, letting go, to embrace new knowledge and to allow whether it's the mantra or the practice um, to take one where it does, and it opens us up to. I think what you're saying is kind of mistaking the person, right? Who the translator for the gift, maybe.
Yeah, it's very easy to have a powerful experience and mistake that powerful experience for the person who offered the practice.
Yeah.
And if that person who's the teacher does not do anything to disabuse you from that notion that this has to do with them or that they're making this happen in some way, as opposed to you are just feeling, maybe for the first time, your own radiance, your own beauty, your own power,
Mm,
right? And pointing you again back to yourself. There's those are red flags.
yeah.
Um, and clearly we haven't gotten that part of the education into, yoga education because it continues to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's confusing because at the same time, it's like the vibration of the person, right? When speak to my experience learning from you, and when you leading me through something, it could be the same words as someone else, but because of your resonance and your heart and this transmission, like it's powerful. It has a different power than the same words by someone who hasn't maybe gone through the work, lived the practice. I think we see that all the time, that it's not just the words, it's not just the practice, but who is sharing it has some importance.
Definitely. I mean, that's the difference between reading a script, right, of a meditation you haven't practiced and offering it to someone, is as amazing and beautiful as the meditation might be, versus you practicing that meditation for 40 days, knowing that meditation inside of you, and maybe even practicing it for longer and longer and longer, and then offering it. Still, that has nothing to do with, you know, don't mistake the opening. I think a teacher can open a portal of space that allows you to feel who you are.
Mm, yeah.
And we can think about that portal of space is not some magical mystical portal. We can just think about like the brainwave states. We can be in this, maybe we're in this like low alpha state right now because we're having this calm conversation, or we're in like low beta, I should say, because we're having a calm conversation. And maybe if you close your eyes, then you're coming into this alpha state. And that feels different. And depending on the teacher and what kind of, brainwave state they might be holding when they're, it creates a coherence,
Hmm.
right? It does
That's true.
create a coherence. And again, that doesn't mean that the person who is leading you is enlightened.
Right. No,
It does. It
that's
doesn't.
very important.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't mean that the person who's leading you is any different than you, other than they may have done more practice,
Yeah, beautiful.
right?
Yeah.
And I am someone who I do not believe that enlightenment is a static condition. I think that
Mm,
we all move in and out of moments of enlightenment. And if we've ever had an epiphany that seemed to drop out of nowhere, or an instant knowing or an intuition, we could say that that is a moment of enlightenment.
yeah.
And for you to sustain enlightenment, I don't think that, you know, teaching at yoga festivals and, living a householder life is really conducive to that, right? So I think that we just have to think about who we are, what our path is, learn to think about what our purpose is here, feel what our purpose is on in this world, what our
Yeah.
dharma really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And be guided by that too.
And, I wanted to ask you about protecting ourselves. So it feels like the right time to talk
Mm.
about protecting our energy from those kind of negative forces, or even like you mentioned earlier, the AI or the phones, or like all these forces that are seem to be wanting our energy, our attention, our data.
Yeah,
It seems to be a focus of your some of your work, at least from my experience being in your circle. Do you think this is a particularly important time for protecting one's energy?
absolutely. I mean, I think that, I've always done my own protection practices and worked with different mantras, but it really came very clear to me during the pandemic that we needed to have protection practices, that those protection practices needed to be shared and amplified. And, we can think about protection in many ways. One of the things that I just mentioned, discernment, is a form of protection, right? Learning to be discerning, learning to question, learning to trust your own intuition, learning to know what it feels like in your body when something is off,
Mm-hmm.
and learning to be able to say, okay, something feels off. I have to trust my own intuition. I have to trust my own knowing. And then being able to use the pause as a form of protection. Sometimes the speed of things or the need to have an answer right away or a confirmation about something right away can be a form of manipulation and a form of us also bypassing our intuition. So, using the pause as a form of protection to be able to say, I actually don't know right now. Let me sit with this. And whether it's I'm giving an answer to another person for something or I'm giving an answer to myself about a direction, just pausing and being okay with pausing for longer than a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's I mean, everything you said there, that we can be convinced that we have to give an answer now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, or you have to buy it now because, if it's going to be gone or the chance is going to be over, you're going to miss out. It's like all of these marketing tools, right?
Yeah.
And so if we think about the power of our senses, it's really our senses that allow us to move from this kind of mundane material world into a sacred space, because that limb of yoga that is known as pratyahara is that withdrawal of the senses so that we can re-assimilate into our true self. Without withdrawing our senses, I don't believe it's possible for us to re-assimilate into our true nature and to
Mm,
understand our true nature, because the senses then are out here in the world.
mm-hmm.
It's very difficult for us to be able to access inner knowing in any way. And I think that, the powers that be, they know this. This is why they want our attention, other than the fact that our attention is worth a lot, right? It's like the more they own our attention, the more they own who we think we are.
And when you're in these devices, if you think about it, you're rarely ever aware of your senses.
No, you're
You're
not.
you're not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but the senses are going. It's like the music is going and that something is happening visually, and maybe it's evoking an emotion for you. So, reclaiming our attention, I think, is something that, um, if I were to say there's one practice that we need to do, it's really being able to reclaim our attention from all the places and all the times that we may have left it somewhere. And there's lots of times and places where we have.
Do you have a I have so many questions. Oh my gosh. But just okay. Do you have a, because you went there, do you have a particular ritual or practice that you recommend for reclaiming senses?
Yeah, I mean, that we could just do one really simply right now, which is essentially just allowing the eyes to close or the gaze to soften, becoming aware of the breath and that the body is breathing, feeling the natural flow of the breath as it moves into the body and out of the body. Noticing the sounds that are in your environment. And as you continue to notice the breath, just begin with each inhale to recall your attention back. Draw your attention back from all the times and places where you may have left it. All of the conversations that are unfinished, all of the open tabs on your computer and devices, all of the decisions that need to be made, the plans that are in process, and the plans that have not yet been made. Begin to feel and sense your energy returning back to you. And just for the next 3 breaths, hold all of your attention inside, noticing all of the sounds, the inner sounds, the inner movement of the body. And then after this breath, just come back.
No. Oh, Tracee. Just your voice. So good.
So that gives us a little bit of a mirror to look at, like, what does it feel like when I'm calling my energy back?
Yeah.
And do I remember all the places where I left it?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's so many. And if I just do that for a couple of minutes, a few times a day, I do believe that it helps with us feeling more grounded and more resourced.
Do you have recommendations for, I have, these are probably two separate questions, so I'll put it out there and whichever one is resonating for you. Folks who um, have survived a trauma and they can't necessarily trust their internal um, alarm system because it's easily they feel unsafe
Mm-hmm.
easily in their own skin. And for those who, I think it's common from what I've seen in yoga and in some other adjacent wellness spaces, for people to feel, as we talk about energy and protection, like they need to be so open. It's almost like
Mm.
pouring out. And I've noticed, sometimes there's not enough conversation about that's not actually generous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how healthy it is in these times to be open and porous.
Yeah.
And I think, again, this is where the discernment comes in. You know, finding an inner resource, a sacred abode that's within your own body, I think is an important practice. And I think the more that we have experienced trauma, the more difficult it can be. But I definitely think that it's possible to find that sacred abode within yourself. And that would be the practice that I would recommend, right? Is to know that we carry that place
Mm.
within us, right? It's not something that we need to go and find or that somebody else has the key to. It's someplace here, and it may not exist yet. So that might mean that we have to cultivate it ourselves, and that might be part of the practice.
Mm, I haven't heard that put that way. And I think that's helpful. I've heard, look inside, find a safe space in your body, but not this direction advice for if I can't quite find it yet, I can cultivate it.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Yeah.
you just sent out a garden
Mm,
ritual.
I did the inner garden. Yeah.
Would that be something aligned with that?
Yeah, it's definitely something that someone can listen to that practice and maybe they begin to create their own, right? They begin to create their own because I think that that's really important that is that it belongs it's something that belongs to you. But that can certainly be an inspiration of how to create that for sure. Yeah.
And I think that's really lovely as well and comes through all your work is this beautiful balance between tradition and any of you who will practice with Tracee, be do this 3 times, do this 6 times. There's certain things that are like it's like baking, it's a recipe.
Mhm.
And you have this at the same time hold this ability, make yourself comfortable, get in a different position. Don't do it the way I say it if it's not working.
Yeah, I feel like there's at least the yoga that I was practicing for many years was very much like, the asana, do it this way. It's like Simon says, and there's no allowance for, is this actually right for my body? So I really like to bring that in, that sense of permissiveness, options, being able to hold um, yourself and be responsible for holding yourself in a way that is caring and loving and nurturing.
Mm,
And I also don't want to lose the thread because I do want to mention mantra as a form of protection.
yes.
You know, mantra, if we think about the etymology of mantra, it comes from manas, which means mind, and the tra or tre, which means protection. That's one of the translations, is that which protects the mind. And mantra, I think, is one of the most valuable tools that we have to be able to bring in a sense of protection,
Do you have
especially.
one in mind?
Well, I mean, the Mahamrityunjaya is a really beautiful. It's a really beautiful mantra, and I think I've read somewhere that it says that the Mahamrityunjaya, even the act of remembering it, is will repel evil forces the way a deer will run away from a lion, right? And so it's really powerful. There are these practices where mantras are placed in the body or installed in the body as an armor
Mm,
or a shield or a protection. Those are considered more kind of initiatory, advanced practices. Um, but mantra is a way for us to really stay protected energetically. And I think that we can think about protection in three different ways. We can think about the protection of our physical body, the protection of our energetic body, and our causal body. And so I think when we're considering what kind of protection do we need to think of our whole being and what is calling for protection.
mm. And I did that sadhana with you for protection,
Mm,
um, 30 or 40 days, repeating that mantra and putting it in all the parts of the body.
yeah,
You have where you go all the way all around, and it was very powerful. So thank you.
yeah, you're welcome for that.
I know we're getting close to the end here.
Mm,
Um, for folks that aren't so familiar with Sanskrit or Indian culture, um, you know, or feel maybe they align with a different spiritual or religious affiliation. Is this okay for them? Um, any thoughts on speaking to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as you are approaching anything with reverence and curiosity to do some of your own research around the practices or ask the questions about a specific practice or a specific mantra, this is great. I also think that the wisdom of your ancestors and your own ancestral lineage and your own ancestral practices are also super powerful.
Mm,
A lot of times, unfortunately, we don't have access to those practices, or maybe we don't know our ancestral lineage. But the simple things like, if you do know or have a general idea of even just bringing in the ancestral foods or creating an ancestor altar of your, well and resourced ancestors can be very powerful. So things open up when we start to make requests to the universe. I'll
yeah.
say that.
Yes, yes. And I love that call to look into our own history, and sometimes the things closest to us feel like, they don't seem as, mysterious.
Hmm.
So there can be a way that we push them away. And I've definitely been through that in my own experience. And then to return to them later
Yeah.
and see, oh, this is all the wisdom that mom and grandma were trying to share is pretty powerful.
Yeah. And sometimes you see correlations between the two, between whatever you
Definitely.
might be practicing and whatever your ancestors were doing. A lot of times it's very similar. So I do think that all of these wisdom traditions are, um, they're portals for us to go back to that ancestral wisdom eventually. Yeah.
Mm. Tracee, this has been so heartwarming
Mm.
and expansive and filling and all, just so good to sit with you and get to ask my personal questions for you. It's like,
Thank
get
you.
to spend time with you. Is there anything we didn't touch on today that feels important to close with?
No, I mean, I loved all of your questions, and um, no, I think I feel complete.
Yeah, I think we did it.
Yeah,
We need to talk about your book that's coming out
yeah.
and your previous books and your circle. So tell people what's happening.
Oh, thank you for that. So the latest book is called Living Ritual: Infuse Each Day with Purpose and Spirit. It comes out on August 25th. And there's a pre order special that if you pre order now, we're actually going to be doing a live 16-day ritual where we'll meet in the mornings for 20 minutes and I'll guide everybody through a ritual so that you get to feel what it feels like to have a daily ritual that's doable in community
Mm,
between the new moon and the full moon. So that's happening.
wow, that's really exciting. Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
we'll put the link for pre-order. Any other important social links or your website?
Yeah, my website is traceestanley.com, and basically everything that you might want to find is on there.
Okay. And Tracee, I mean, your newsletter is wonderful, and
Mm,
all your
thank you.
offerings. I recommend folks get the physical and the audio versions of your
Mm,
books,
mm.
because I mean, hearing you just speak the words is great, but also circling and underlining and putting stars. So you're definitely one of those authors where I think having both is really helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I know it's extremely valuable, and I really appreciate you sharing your time and energy with me.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you for the invitation. It was an honor to be able to sit with you for this time. I hope we get to do it again soon.
I hope so too.
Thank you.